and 4 games for this morning, so plenty of stuff to go through. I was thinking, yeah, we could take a look at the Queen's Gambit declined Orthodox. That's what I had in mind. Yeah, I think we can probably just get started. Basically, the Queen's Gambit declined Orthodox, just so we know, is a kind of a very closed opening. It involves facing off d4, d5, with ideas like c4, so say c4, e6, and with a frequent opportunity to play knight to c6. Many lines in which black plays an early knight to c6 end up being inside the Queen's Gambit declined Orthodox. That's pretty common. That happens, that happens in a lot of games. C6 here would transpose it into a semi-Slav position, but we're interested in seeing, basically the Orthodox. So here you want to opt for moves like knight c6. I don't know. I think here it becomes kind of fully committal to the Queen's Gambit declined, basically e6 facing off against d5, and it's a very closed position basically. This is kind of an interesting situation. One of the key resources for black in this case is basically restricted. The c7 pawn, the ability to free with either c5 or defend with c6, that's not available to black. So in this case, you're sort of like, you're basically, you will probably be able to get through this, and grandmasters basically, will play a game from this position. But it is a very restricted game, and I think the ideas in this game demonstrate, kind of the ability to, to see how black can basically play out of a very closed position. In these types of games, rook plays to the c file, but this one of the positives of this knight is that it does restrict, play on this c file. C7 is not particularly vulnerable, although it's not particularly helpful either. So ideas for rook to c1. I guess you could probably try to develop bishop to d7. But if you look at this position, black's very restricted in a very closed position. It's sort of difficult to figure out what to do here. A6 is one of the top options, h6 is one of the top options, but this is actually a very broad moment in the opening tree. So anyways, how does black fix the closedness of his position? We can take a look. Ideas, one of the largest ideas in Queen's Pawn games is to free with c5, and here that's not available. So I don't know. You can try for a6, queen d6, e5 potentially, but I don't know. This position is closed almost to the aspect that white needs to that basically white needs to figure out. Black almost needs white to open this position further, I guess is my point. Bishop h4, knight e4, bishop takes, queen c2, knight takes c3, queen takes c3. This is a lot more open. So what happened in this situation? Black used knight to e4 as a freeing move. Once this bishop is off the board, some of black's pieces can come out and basically play into this position. Rook to e8, bishop e2, bishop d7, castles, rook to c8, c takes, and now actually black has some open lines. But let's go back. How did this happen? How, what should black do to improve the situation? Knight to c6, knight to f3, bishop to g4, c takes d5, queen takes d5, knight c3. This is an alternative way that this can go. This basically turns into the Scandinavian. Kind of interesting. Hey, good morning, Ansh. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for joining the stream. Basically here, with knight c6, we're going for kind of these very closed positions, and we're sort of going to demonstrate how to play against this. A3 restricts this bishop. This bishop had potential freeing possibility on bishop to b4. But in general, I guess my point is in these closed positions, every closed position involves a freeing break at some point. if you're playing a closed position and you have no interest in kind of expanding your, basically expanding your um, position, you're going to be playing with a spatial disadvantage. So, basically every Queen's Gambit declined, every Queen's Gambit declined Orthodox, all the really, aggressively closed lines, they are going to involve breaks at some point. So yeah, I guess I would say the main goal of playing in a very closed position is finding the break that leads you to the most, the most favorable position, the most favorable gain of space, and play towards this. There's no advantage to having a closed position for the sake of having a closed position. The goal is to outmaneuver your opponent, and that will involve turning a closed position into an open where you will have an advantage in mobility relative to your opponent. Here, that's what you're going for, and with that in mind, I think you can, can advance that. So bishop e7, bishop f4, castles, e3, a6, c5. This is now very closed again. Black's going to be looking for a, Black's going to be looking for breaks here. So I don't know, knight e4 potentially. Hey, welcome, Tarash. Thanks for joining the stream. So knight to e4 potentially, knight to h5. But basically, ideas for black here, I think will end up being, basically things that will open the position at specific points. D5. Okay, yeah, no worries. Yeah, so knight h5 is a possibility for black. F6. But yeah, ideas include knight to h5. But basically attempts to try to open the position. Yeah, everything's good. Everything's good. Thanks for joining the stream, Tarash. Knight takes f4, e takes f4, bishop f6, knight e2, and basically black's fine here. A5, queen c2, h6, yeah, but basically black's looking for kind of freeing positions here. We could take a look at we could take a look at different possibilities, but here, c4, e6, there's sort of a bunch of Queen's Gambit decline theory that could potentially be good. Knight f6. I was about 50%, to be honest, Lauren. c6, e3, knight b7, queen to c2, bishop d6, bishop d3. This is a semi-Slav. Semi-Slav, I think, comes with a much better general situation. Queen to c7, d5, e5 here, and basically, yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, that one's beyond me, I think, but should be interesting. Has anyone tried a blindfold simul? That's beyond my level. I think that's GM level stuff. Queen to c7 will open this position up. And, overall, I think the Queen's Gambit declined Orthodox versus semi-Slav defense. I'd rather... Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I'm not Magnus, though, so... But yeah, so overall, the question is like, why is black playing knight to c6 here? Why is this helpful for black, and how how can white go about basically beating black out of this position? Bishop f4, bishop b4, e3, castles. Here's another kind of Queen's Gambit decline position. c7 is just not particularly vulnerable. I think that's sort of worth knowing in this Queen's Gambit declined. Basically, playing this Queen's Gambit declined ends up in a better situation for white. Let's take a look at the evals. I don't think there are going to be Queen's Gambit declined lines in which did an 8-game blindfold simul against the French Masters. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. So yeah, queen to c2's got potential, queen to c2, knight to e4, and basically black's doing fine. This is probably the best attempt for black to kind of get out of this, but I guess one of the things about it is just make sure that you're facing off the just make sure that you're facing off this aggressive play against basically try to escape from white's spatial advantages here. Hey, what's up? Good morning, Rock. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Ideas. A6, preventing kind of advancements on c7. H6, and here basically black's looking fine. I don't know. The quicker that black can get out of this, this very close position, the better. So overall, Queen's Gambit Declined, I think, is Queen's Gambit Declined Orthodox, I think, is not an opening that people play frequently. The main question is just sort of why and what benefit does it provide. Good morning, Aphelion. Thanks for joining. Hey, guys. C6, knight to f6, bishop to e7, knight to d7, and black is looking fine here. So I don't know. Queen's Gambit Declined at the end of the day offers a more limited opportunity to escape from the restrictions placed on black. The main goal in closed games is to basically secure an opening advantage in a situation where you've opened the position. So that's the main point. Thank you very much for the suggestion, and Privilo, the main point of these Queen's Gambit Declined games is try to basically try to open them in a favorable situation. If you leave them closed, nothing good particularly happens to you, and find the break that's helpful for you and execute it at the correct time. Make sure it's sufficiently prepared, and that will be the best way to move forward on this. Anyways, let's take a look at Ansh's game. I wanted to get through 4 games today as opposed to 3. All right, Ansh is playing white here, and basically Ansh plays. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, definitely. Ansh is playing white and plays an early e3 against Queen's Gambit Accepted. In terms of Queen's Gambit Accepted lines, most common is knight to f3, second most common e4, third most common e3. e3 is fine though. Those are all acceptable responses for Queen's Gambit Accepted. Knight to f6, knight f3, e6, bishop takes c4. Now basically we're in a situation where oh yeah, it's worse than that. It's worse than that, Aphelion. I think that the yes, I think they sort of equilibrate to your rating, Aphelion, but I definitely want to see you get a title. Since we have a few extra minutes and since we're a little bit off of schedule, I thought it might be helpful to show everyone this, the Fide Arena titles. Hey, welcome, Electric Horse. Yeah, so I thought it might be cool to show everyone the Fide title system. So the Fide title system has basically 4 titles that are well known, right? Grandmaster, International, Fide Master, and Candidate Master. Then it has the same 4 titles for women's, so women's, Grandmaster, International Master. But if you'd like a Fide title for yourself, what you can do is you can actually join the Fide Arena. No, I don't think so. I mean, there are titles. Do you want a title or do you not want a title? I would figure any titled player is a benefit, right? So, yeah. So, on this page, if you've got if you want a Fide title, a main point of Fide titles is to, basically show, show the skill of your play. So, yeah, look, I mean, look, there are 12 Fide titles, and of those 12, I would say that there are 12, so if you want to come up with a, if you want to get a title, this is how you do it. Fide titles for whoever wants them. 4, 8, 12. Arena titles for whoever would like them. And basically, I think that Felion's well on his way to getting one. So yeah, so in terms of getting a Fide title, my rating on there is about 2240. I think that the 150 bullet games, 100 blitz games, or 50 rapid games with a performance rating of over 2,000. So that's it for GM. And Arena Candidate Master is the lowest one. This will require a performance rating of over 1100. But I strongly recommend you guys take a look at this, because Fide titles are available to everyone. No, but I mean, for people who ask, do you have a Fide title or not? The answer should be yes, right? If it's within my reach, they're not mutually exclusive. Yeah, I would have both. So I'm focused on these arena titles. The thing about it is, if you put it next to your name, people will recognize it as a Fide title, kind of regardless of what you do. So yeah, there's 12 titles, and go get yourself one, is my point. Yeah, so we can do this too. Since we're looking at the Fide Rapid Arena, let's see. What I forgot what it was. Fide Arena. We can do this. Basically, what you can do here is go onto the Fide Rapid Arena. Nah, I think you may have. But I don't know. All right, so you can say, so you can go on, and then you can say, I would like to play a Fide rated game. So here, Fide rated, bullet. We'll play a bullet 1 minute game, and we'll get to see. So find opponent, 1 minute bullet, and yeah, go for it. No, my accounting's much better. But yeah, so here we go. So now we're playing an 1880 Fide at bullet. We'll see how this goes. Normally there's players around 1,000 or so. One thing I will say about this lag is that there's some lag on this thing. Yeah, we'll see what happens with this guy, or if he recovers. But this is kind of interesting. 58. So this is just a demonstration, a trial run of kind of how the Fide rated arena goes. Assuming that my thing isn't lagging out. I've started this game off with E4, and we're playing a Fide rated game right now, right? Okay, so that one looked like it got aborted, but let's try again. Now we have a 1200 here. Let's see how this goes. Sorry, let's move this a little bit to the side, just so it can be visible, right? But yeah, these are Fide rated games, officially Fide rated games for the purpose of gaining an Arena GM title. And if anyone else wants an Arena title, this is how you do it. Basically, there's 12 titles, so go get yourself one. All right, here's this guy again. Let's see how this goes. This guy's pretty strong. He's playing quickly. Cool sound effects too. I should have played bishop to d3 there. Well, let's see. I mean, that's the question, right? That seems to win an exchange, maybe 2 exchanges. I just need to make sure that I don't hang anything. But this should end up being a Fide rated win, right? I'd figure as much. Oh, I have to promote to queen. But yeah, so I guess my point here is basically, is this, is this a Fide rated game? Yes. Does this move me towards a Fide rated title? Yes. And yeah, cool. So +4, my Fide rating went from 2248 to 2252. And if I do that, I think 149 more times, that was a Fide, that was a legit Fide rated game, just so you guys understand. And it was well on the way to securing a Fide title. This basically structure of Fide rated titles is available to everyone. That basically showed kind of what a game against an 1880 or so was like. It was interesting. Sign-up cost, I think, is about 30 or 40 euros, if I remember correctly. It's not big. If it was larger, I would have been more. I would be more concerned about it. But yeah. So the threshold is a Fide rated game with a performance rating of over 2,000. Oh, you don't have to win 50 in a row. It's just 50. Yeah, it's just 50 total, or yeah, 50 rapid total. I was gonna see if I could do it with 150 bullet games. I feel like I could knock that out in a day or two. But yeah, that's oh, it's a rating above the threshold for that many games. Interesting. But yeah, so Fide rated games, Fide rated yeah, Fide rated tournaments. Interesting. I didn't know that's what it was, Aphelion. I believe you, but I'm not sure. Or I didn't know that. Interesting. All right. Well, for anyone who wants a Fide rated title, you can get a Fide title as well as having your USCF rating. Fide title. And then, you can go to your local tournament director, right? And if you're playing a local tournament and you see all the people with titles on the wall chart, you can say, all right, I have a Fide title. Please put me down as a, AIM, AFM, ACM, whatever. Because it should show up on the wall chart the same way that it shows up on all the other Fide rated title players. So yeah, I think this is an interesting option. I think this is an option that hasn't been explored by that many people, and if you play these, then yeah, on a Fide chart, Fide titles are recognized by by the USCF in USCF rated tournaments all the time. So these ones should be as well. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be. Anyways, let's get back to Ansh's game. Yeah, no. If you're playing a wall chart, yeah, arena titles are on the tournament list. Interesting, cool. So I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious about that. Arena titles are on the tournament list. Interesting. Yeah, so people I think should get into that. You get yourself a Fide title. Why not? And yeah, well, if it's there. If it's there, it's there. So let's take a look at Ansh's game. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. All right. So far in this game, Ansh plays a pretty straightforward-looking game. E3 against the Queen's Gambit accepted. Cool. Bishop takes c4. Knight to c6. Knight to c3. I don't understand e6 particularly, or bishop e6. This just seems to worsen Black's pawn structure. From here, we're in a pretty wide Uh, yeah, I mean, it's a good question, right? So bishop e6, bishop takes e6, pawn takes e6, and here this is a this is a situation in which white has a better pawn structure, and black has somewhat voluntarily given a black has somewhat voluntarily given himself a disrupted pawn structure. So here, basically bishop e6 was bad in that it gets a three, basically a three pawn island issue. This e6 is going to become a big target of attack. Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of interesting. You know what I'm kind of curious about is, maybe we should is if chess.com would recognize an AGM title. That's what I'm curious about. Like, as opposed to, right now they have like, you know how they have Titled Tuesday on chess.com? Like, Untitled Tuesday on chess.com, I wonder if they would take your ACM title and let you into that. Yeah, right? And by Fide. So that's what I'm kind of curious about, to be honest. You are titled, yeah, you're titled. So they should let you into Title Tuesday is what I'm thinking. What's the question, Lauren? But yeah, Title Tuesday. It's a Fide title. There's 12 Fide titles, of which those 12... Yeah, but do they say that, or does it just... I haven't seen them, but it's a Fide title. Fide title, and there's 12 of them. There's 4, 8, 12. So I don't see any reason why... I mean, I don't know. They're all Fide recognized titles, but yeah, you're right. I haven't seen a arena title, but these are Fide recognized titles. So I don't know. I also wonder about these training titles. I've never seen anyone with a training title play in a Titled Tuesday tournament. But yeah. Okay, so now we have this this fractured pawn structure. So I would play queen to b3 here. I think queen to b3 is probably the quick. It's the quickest way. Basically queen to b3, and I think you have kind of a quick fork of the e6 pawn and the b7 pawn. But it's up to you. So queen b3. I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know. Probably more than 2,500. That kind of like high level. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you can get a an officially recognized arena title, then I don't see why they shouldn't let you into Fide, Fide Title Tuesday. Like, I don't know. Probably about 2,500, Lauren. I would guess 2,500. But yeah, pretty far. You don't think? I don't know. I mean, it's restrictive, but it's not like ridiculously restrictive. It would be kind of crazy being the 2,500 playing like the King's Gambit and that kind of stuff, but yeah, 2,500 should be pretty strong. Yeah, it's all about the tactics, right? But tactics, you can get pretty far on tactical play. I would say, you can take a look. I mean, look at like the levels of like world level GMs or former world champions under the current system. Like there've been comparisons where they say, what would each of these GMs have been rated, and it's pretty high. Um, okay, so Ant is playing against someone who has hung a piece relatively early. Uh, but this position gets very tactically complicated. So now you've got these 3 pawns. So yeah, I would play queen to b3 here, try to clear a pawn off the board. I'm very confused by knight to e4. I mean, I think that's basically right. I agree with the Feely on there. The game is so tactically driven. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, I would say that, like, 90% of players will never make it past the point that, like, tactics are by far the most, decisive factor. It's just interesting. Tactics are a really inefficient way. They're a really inefficient area. If you study tactics, you'll improve quickly. And a lot of people spend a lot of time learning theory while tactical play is like the place where most games are decided. But yeah, looking at Anch's game, this should be probably getting close to a win for White already. White's up a piece, has better development, better center control. Here with d4, I think you can play pawn takes d4 instead. But yeah, knight e2, and then yeah, White's just better. White should probably play queen to e2. Yeah, sure. If you like to play that way, then by all means, go ahead. Like, I don't think you need to be so exclusive, like basically like so like restrictive about it, right? I think that you can you can stick to those like basically style of openings, and you can basically factor in additional things that will provide you can still orient your game that way, and then not have many issues. Restrictiveness, yeah. I mean, if you're really, the most important thing is that chess stays fun for you, right? So assuming that chess is fun, then wow, nice job. Yeah, keep up the good work, Yanch. I think that's great. Yeah, good work. So here there's 3 pawn islands. White's facing off with 2 pawn islands against 3. White should play queen to b3 here. That's the first improvement. I just want to go through front to back here and basically see this. Castles, basically you can stop a lot of aggressive play here by castling. Pawn takes d4 is going to happen either way. Maybe d5 could be a potential opportunity to improve this. But I think I would lean towards just playing castles here, and as someone who's up a piece, basically just just basically relax. So castles, I think, is better. But yeah, so I think that a lot of basically a lot of errors here were created by not castling. I guess as a general policy, if you're up a piece, you want to basically, play pretty conservatively and make sure that your opponent doesn't have potentially winning tactics. In this situation, you can either go d5 and then castle, or just castle directly. But either way, I think you're going to end up in a situation where you'll just be up a piece, and you may give back this d4 pawn, but overall, I think this should be something that will play out well for white. So yeah, castles, and you're just you just basically trade off. You can give black a little bit of attacking on the queen side, but nothing that really wins a lot of material. Yeah, I think you can just kind of have a pretty relaxed position with castles here. There's no reason to be too restrictive in terms of forcing yourself to play. You don't have to beat white's attack here. Is basically my point. You can just sort of let white's attack win a pawn or two. That's not that important considering that you're up a piece, and just castle out of it. Play to king h1 if you need to, and just enter kind of a more complicated, basically a less complicated game where you're still up a piece. From here, white's still in good shape. b4 I think opens the position more than it needs to be. Queen to c2 I think is good. Queen to c2, bishop to f4, that could end up being good for white. But yeah, that's my suggestion on how to kind of improve this game. So yeah, it's not until fairly late in this. It's not until bishop to g5 that black is actually like considerably better here. In this situation, if you play like rook to c1 or some kind of straightforward rook to b1, I guess is probably better. You might as well defend this pawn. This ends up being better for white. Just you can kind of have a relaxed situation, nothing too exciting. And play, basically not lose anything, and be relaxed about this. Queen to c2, rook to c1, yeah, things are fine. No issues. Queen to c2, or rook to b or rook to b1, you're going to be kind of walking in a pretty easy to win endgame. White just doesn't have any chances here if you don't provide any chances to white. Yeah, so bishop to g5, bishop takes, bishop to d2, rook to d7, and here, black's just better. I think the situation sort of deteriorates, and yeah. I mean, you definitely don't want to tip, you don't want to, I guess I would say you don't want to tip off this, that you're basically going to let this attack go. I think black will, if you tip off that this, if you tip off exactly what you're doing, or exactly what's going on, you're going to have worse chances for, white. I mean, black's going to play his attack slightly differently if he knows that you're just going to, let him basically win in the center and move to the king side. But I think that basically here, this situation, especially after bishop to g5, this will end up worse for white. Still some tactical imprecision here, but I think the main goal is this. So I think there's two things that I would really change about this game. I would play queen to b3 here, forking this b7 pawn and this e6 pawn. That's a tactical improvement. And then once you're up this piece, there's just no reason to need to beat white in the center. You can just let white have like an extra pawn in the center, play like pawn takes, e d4, knight takes d4, and then just castle and your position is fixed. There's no issue here. Everything's just fine, yeah, white should be fine. No issues. Yeah, good stuff for white. Opportunities include bishop to f4. Opportunities include queen to b1 to kind of be able to advance this attack with moves like rook to d1. But white's looking fine here, no real issues, and this is, this ends up being good for white. It was only once you got sort of tangled in this position is already more tangled than I would hopefully make it. At this point, you're probably better off playing queen to c2 and castling queenside. This ends up being better for white than castling kingside. But queen to c2 here, and you're better. You know, castle, yeah, so queen to c2, you know, the advantage is about 5 points. You know, black is both down a piece and underdeveloped. So now you're probably better off just castling queenside if this queen is going to block your ability to play castle kingside. Castle queenside and trade off all your pieces. So overall, interesting situation. Let's go back to the opening theory. Improvements here. So e3 is not the most common move in the Queen's Gambit accepted. It's totally fine. But yeah, bishop to e6, bishop takes e6. I think this, you know, instead here, for black, you know, something like e5, which fixes some developmental problems. So basically like bishop to b4, bishop to f5. These types of moves could potentially be stronger for black. Knight f3, e takes d4, e takes d4, bishop to d6. Basically, I think this provides a better structure for black. The main point in terms of assessing whether bishop e6 is, you know, a good idea for the opening is really more about, you know, kind of where you'll be after bishop moves to e6. So in this case, white gives up his better squared bishop, but gives black a much worse pawn structure. This is when you play bishop to e6, this is basically the position that you should consider as black. This overall situation, these 3 pawns here, this should end up being, you know, good for white. So, you know, if you're thinking about playing a move like bishop to e6, it's less about kind of what the move does immediately, but where the move will end up, like a move or two later. That's sort of what I would consider. You know, if you play bishop to f5, you know, the bishop's going to be on f5 in a few moves. So, like, you know, the move will continue, you know, the game will continue, e6, you know, I don't know, knight to c3 or something. But the bishop gets to stay on f5, and the pawn structure stays solid. And overall, the positions that you should be comparing are the positions after this, as opposed to the position after bishop to e6, pawn takes e6. You know, slowing it down like that, I think, can be helpful in terms of thinking about how to play. But overall, this pawn structure should be better for black. Anyways, interesting point, interesting things to consider, and yeah, I think overall this should be a situation where black is going to be, black's going to be better. C6, A4, bishop B4, castles. Overall here, white's looking fine, and this is just some random, this is just basically some random line. But yeah, the improvement that I would think of is, you know, you don't really have to learn opening theory, but I would think about pawn structure more in the kind of way that you're playing as black. So in terms of things for white, queen to b3 to capitalize on this disrupted pawn structure, and as black, play developing moves that won't really, that won't disrupt your pawn structure after they're played. Bishop f5, e6 is the way to develop the bishop. If you're worried about f7, you can play e6 directly. This sort of blocks off this bishop from going there, but doubling your e-pawns is not a great idea. Be careful about the way that you double pawns here, because if you do this, then bishop to e6, bishop takes e6, pawn takes e6, you're ending up with a pawn structure that's easier for white to attack. I think that's the error for black in this game, and I think those are things to improve on. Afterwards, basically after white's up a full piece, just play a little bit more conservatively. Play like queen to c2. If the queen's blocking off this diagonal, castle kingside, but improve your king safety, trade off your pieces, and go into the endgame up a piece. Also, leave some pawns on the board so that you can queen one of them. Those are my suggestions on this game. I hope that's helpful, and yeah, thanks Ants for sending it, and hope that's a helpful analysis. Here's Sam Sejwani's game. E4, C5, knight F3, D4, knight takes, knight takes. We know that this is basically better for white. We've looked at this before, but basically in the Sicilian, the knight's not supposed to take to the point where this queen gets to go to D4. This queen is strong on D4. It can't be threatened by anything very easily. In order to threaten it, you need to play like queen to B6, in which case you can get this doubled, this doubled pawn. Uh, d4, knight f6, c4, knight f3. Queen's Gambit declined. I would just play d5 there as black. And, yeah, play d5, play c6. I have a bias towards the semi-Slav. I think semi-Slav ends up being a good situation for black. But yeah, I think that the semi-Slav provides the best opportunities for black to basically move his position forward. Basically with the semi-Slav, you're in a solid position. If you can solve the developmental problem for the light squared bishop, you can basically develop it and be okay. And yeah, white's in this position, white's better here. After the knight trades off on d4, you have the queen that can't be easily disrupted from the square. And yeah, that's my point, Thierry, is you're sort of with your question, Thierry, just transpose it into the semi-Slav and you'll be okay. In this game, this is the Sicilian. The Sicilian's not supposed to trade down into knight takes d4, queen takes d4. After queen takes d4, this queen can't be attacked easily. This is maybe black's best attempt, but then, how valuable is it really to knock this queen to c4 as opposed to d4? Not particularly. Bishop to d2 is kind of interesting. Bishop to e3 is kind of interesting. One of the issues with bishop to c5 and then moving the queen is that it could potentially disrupt white's further development. Bishop to e3 is an idea to kind of fight against that. Here on bishop to c5, the queen can play to d2 and still retain clean development for both bishops. So yeah, I guess I would say black's defense here was kind of lacking, but I want to spend more time on the opening. So here, I think we should be out of the opening book. Or not, I guess not quite. Moving the dark squared bishop is definitely good. Queen to d2 is the most natural square for this queen in this, in this game. So on bishop to c5, developing to queen to d2 makes sense, and that's usually better after bishop to e3. Okay, queen takes, f3. Yeah, queen takes g7, and this, this mate comes. So, yeah. Better for white, checkmate for white. Makes sense. I think that black could have done better with this this opening, but honestly, I think this is just sort of the biggest lesson here is don't play knight takes, queen takes d4. This is a bad way. This simplification is bad for white in this game. Pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, e6, and white is fine. No issues here. White's just better. In terms of eval, white's up by about a pawn, 2 pawns. And yeah, I think that black needed to come up with a more effective way to defend his queenside. But yeah, the opening is unplayable for black, so don't play that. The Sicilian is supposed to be one where you leave tension, some level of tension in the center, not where you simplify everything and let the queen get d4. That's the main takeaway from this game. On to the next one. This is Pravilo's game. Let's take it. It's black's. Basically, black is playing here. Knight f6, e3. In this opening, so d4, g6 is definitely a playable opening. There's many situations where a queen's pawn opening will turn into a fianchettoed bishop for black. This basically transposes into, I guess you would say, the modern. Bishop f4 has some similarities to the London type system, but modern against an early bishop to f4. I think this should be pretty solid for black. This is sort of a quiet development structure for white. In terms of looking at this, basically this is involving, d6 kind of flattens this bishop's impact. Running the modern against the London, basically one of the benefits of the London, right, is that white will have this sustained attack on c7. The bishop on f4 will be attacking c7, and basically, so this bishop on f4 is facing off against c7. But what makes that particularly playable in the London is the same thing that makes bishop to c4 bad in the Sicilian. If you're playing the London, d4, d5, bishop to f4, the d5 pawn can never go back to d6. So this this bishop to f4 against the modern as opposed to the London provides weakness for this bishop on this basically on this diagonal. That's why black has equalized here, providing this d6 against the bishop on f4 really weakens the bishop on f4. So what's interesting about this is that after basically d4 knight f6, bishop to f4 is not really that good. Basically this will lead almost back towards equality. d6 is always going to be a resource. So on d4 knight f6, this is just not a situation that black needs to be particularly afraid of. d6 is a perfectly playable move here. You can sort of avoid it. You can just play d6 here immediately if you want. That maybe not. That's not the best. But g6 and then d6 being playable. Bishop to g7. But yeah, interesting situation. Black ends up converting this game. Good win for Pravillo. But what's worth noting about this game is that d6 provides a great defensive resource against a premature f4 or bishop to f4. That's what I would say about this. Now it's about equal. Bishop g7, bishop takes, c5. And overall, I would say it's about equal. Black's looking fine. So where did white really misstep is my question. Well, the first thing is this premature bishop to f4 is not particularly strong. Bishop to f4 runs into d6. You can play knight to e4 to threaten the bishop on g5. But here, black's just better. The eval is at -0.2, and it never shifts back towards white's direction. So bishop takes, c4, c5. By this point, black is up by 1.3 pawns. This is worth thinking about. It's basically kind of a good demonstration of why why a premature bishop to f4 is bad. Bishop to f4 should come after d5, the same way that bishop to c4 should come in the Sicilian after e5. Otherwise, it's going to be stuck on a bad diagonal. The diagonal defending move for black here still exists, so that's the biggest thing. Bishop takes, c4, c5, and black's just fine. C takes d4 is a little better. C takes d4 followed by knight to c6 is good, and black is fine. Better moves here. Simplifying on d4 seems to be what the engine prefers. C takes d4 followed by castles or c6. What the engine doesn't like particularly is having the ability for white to play d5 and threaten the knight on c6. So on c5, knight to c3, and then what it doesn't like about knight to c6 is basically d5 is playable. This knight to c6 d5 combination is one that the engine wants you to avoid as black. So instead, if you just simplify, which is a trade that you're completely fine with, by the way, if you play pawn takes d4, pawn takes d4, this pawn on the c file takes off the pawn on the e file, and black ends up fine. Um, cool. Now basically things are about equal. And black's up by about 1.1 pawns. Nothing's particularly dangerous for black here. Pawn takes, rook to b6. And yeah, this was a missed opportunity for black. The better move here, Pravilo, is knight to e2. But overall, I think Pravilo's really headed in the right direction, you know? Like, Pravilo's actually been someone who's been doing all of the tactic study that I've suggested. I think his game's getting a lot stronger. You know, when he first started the stream, I think he was about 500, 600. Now it looks like he's about 1,000, and that's, you know, that's good. So I want to give him credit for that. Definitely an improvement. Yeah, a good win, solid win. But thematically speaking, I think the main thing to look at in this game, you know, I don't think there's a tremendous amount of volatility here. It's a pretty solid game, actually. You know, and pretty accurate. Not super inaccurate or anything. But this just shows how the modern can basically face off well against this bishop on f4. The bishop needs open lines to justify itself. If it's not facing off against an open line after d5, it's not particularly strong, and it can run into ideas like d6 and e5. So that's the thinking. Here too, just simplifying is probably better. I'm curious about pawn takes d4, knight takes d4. Whatever it is, you're trading the c pawn for either the d pawn or the e pawn, and this ends up fine for black. So. There was a missed opportunity for knight to e2. That was a tactical improvement here. But yeah, overall, I think this is great. No problems, and yeah, good good stuff. Yeah, all right, let's take a look at the last one. We went through these really quick. Maybe we'll have some time for something kind of fun to do at the end of the stream. Okay. Bishop d3, queen d3. So this is Determined Vision's game, so we'll take it from their perspective. Determined Vision plays knight to c6. I think this is so this is when you should play bishop to f4, right? This is the London system. The bishop's not facing off against the diagonal where it can get compromised here. This bishop facing off against the c7 diagonal, this ends up being good for this is where the bishop f4 move is good for white. Knight to c6, e3, bishop to f5, d3, bishop takes, queen takes. And basically I think that you know, black is fine. You know, this is kind of a standard London system. White ends up with a small sustained advantage. Yeah, totally, Lauren. I think it's a good idea. If you guys play on there, maybe I'll see. But yeah, I'll see how it works. I want to play that 150 games. You know, 150 bullet games. I wonder if I can you know, do that in a couple days. It depends on how strong everyone is and how messed up my rating gets. But yeah. Yeah, we should all race to get the first arena title. But you know, there's 12 titles, and you know, basically, if they're next to your name, there shouldn't be much of a difference between them. But yeah, is that true, Lauren? Does the online rapid affect your OTB Fide? Because that's nuts. I didn't know if that's the case. Oh, for sure. Yeah, but I don't think you'll lose to it in 1,000. I mean, if anything, but to be fair though, that is you know, It's still a Fide title. Whether or not you're losing to 1,000s, it's still a Fide title. So, I don't know. But yeah, so let's think a little bit about this game. So this is Determined Vision's game. I think it's a win for them. What's going on? Here. So basically, it's a stronger London than one where d5 hasn't been playing. Okay, gotcha. Bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, e6, knight f3, bishop d6. And basically here, white's got an advantage of about 0.2. This is kind of the normal, this is basically the normal, like, London system advantage. Not large, but 0.2 for white, and white's going to try to do his best to maintain it. c3 is a little bit quiet too. Bishop to d6, bishop to g3, knight f6. And basically, white's just got his slow, kind of sustained, slow, sustained advantage here. E5 might be playable. I'm just looking at e5. I think rook e8 and then e5 could be a good way for black to challenge the center. I kind of like that. With knight to g5, f5 seems to create big problems. F5 might win the full piece, so I think that this might have been a good way to win this piece as black. Yeah, perfect. Great work. Great tactics by black, actually. Really nice tactical combination. Yeah, F5 threatens pieces the whole way and eventually traps the bishop. So F5, queen has to go somewhere. H6, knight has to go somewhere. G5, the bishop is trapped, or the knight has to sacrifice for the pawns. So yeah, really good tactical thoughts. I thought I was gonna, I didn't know if that was what was gonna be what was played. So yeah, great tactic. And then black basically having won a full piece there and now up a rook, walks in a pretty clean endgame here. This is good. It's a good game for black. Strong, makes sense, yeah, I like it. So thematic concepts here. Against bishop to f4, is knight the best play? Knight c6 the best play? No, it's not. So, knight to c6 causes white multiple problems in the in the queen's pawn games. Ideas like c5, ideas like c6, those become kind of not playable as black. That c pawn is often a valuable resource for challenging white's control of the center or defending your d5 pawn. So knight to c6 restricts both of those. So for that reason, not very good. Pawn takes, knight takes, queen to e4. By this point, I think that white's got kind of his still same small advantage. But yeah, black's up by about 4 pawns. His position looks good. So that was really what was important. It looks pretty it looks pretty simple, but this move shifts the game by about 2.5 pawns. G5, pawn takes, queen there, and yeah, should end up all right. Wins for black. In terms of improvements, I would just walk away from this kind of lesson as like asking whether you should be playing knight to c6 against bishop to f4. Compare knight to c6 compared to the best move here, which is knight to f6. The issue is it just creates sustained problems. There's a difference of 4/10 of a pawn between knight to c6 and knight to f6. So unless you really have a good reason to be playing knight to c6, I would go with a more normal structure against the London. Knight to f6, c6, bishop to f5, e6, and basically things are fine. I always like the semi-Slav. I think the semi-Slav is a great great way to play against relatively new relatively low-rated players. I think it's really good, solid defense at class level. Yeah, so I would avoid the early knight to c6 because it restricts your c pawn, and I would instead play knight to f6 and c6 here. All right, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this game. I was thinking, I don't know, if you think we can get a simul going, because I'm sort of curious. I would do a game in 5-minute simul to close the lesson out if you guys want. Like 5 minutes aside and then a simul. It's up to you, but if there's 3 people to do it, like 3 people basically to do a simul with, then we should do it. If not, I can go through like a more lesson. I was thinking chess.com, like chess.com game in 5, but I'm not going to start playing unless unless I get 3 challenges that come in. Otherwise, I'm just going to go over a lesson. Like I'm just going to do some analysis in. I was thinking maybe the French. I'm just sort of thinking about like different theory that would be helpful for me to learn. So. Let's take a look at some French theory. If three challenges come in, I'll take it. Otherwise, I'm gonna go through some French theory. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, e4. Or sorry, I'll open up a new analysis. E4, e6. I did, but not for super long. I just sort of looked at it. E4, e6, d4, d5, and basically White's ideas. Tarrasch with knight to d2. Let's look at a Tarrasch line. I haven't looked at the Tarrasch line in a while, but in honor of Tarrasch being here, all right, you want to do it? Yeah. So if yeah. So. But if I can get 3 challenges, then I'll simul. All right, here's Aphelions. So I'm going to leave this challenge here. But if I get 3, I'll start it off. We have like 10 minutes for another 2 to come in, and if we can get 2 more to come in, I'll close out with the simul. If that's cool with everybody. Otherwise, I'm just going to go through the normal lesson stuff. But let's take a look at Tarrasch's basically Tarrasch game, and I'm looking at lines in which I want to play a simul. If it's just one person, I'm like, that's not enough. So e5, knight fd7, bishop to d3, c5, c3. White's looking fine. Basically there's no kind of, this is a closed Tarrasch defense. The Tarrasch is good. I mean, in this situation, it looks like White's going to have kind of a sustained advantage. Threats of d4 and e5. I'm just hoping we can get 3. That's the thing. 3 people and then we'll get started. But if it's just one, I would play Aphelion some other time. I don't want to use lesson time to just play a single game. So yeah, c3, d4, e5. This structure is already established this structure is established in the French. White has basically counteracted the c5 resource with his c3 move. That's one of the main advantages of the Tarrasch. I'm trying to think of a situation where, I'm waiting for 2 others. If so knight f6, e5, knight d7, bishop to d3. But yeah, so basically facing off this c5 against this c3, this is going to lead to this resource being exhausted for black. Let's look at what the other options are. C5 and then 2 options: knight to gf3 or e takes d5. Up to you. Game in 5. All right, so we've got 2. All right, if we can get 1 more in the next 9 minutes, I'll do a simul and then we'll close on a simul. But otherwise, we're looking at a theory. Yeah, no, you had it right. I think you had it right, Raymond. Wasn't that a game in 5? Yeah, perfect. All right, so 1 more and then we'll start off the simul. Bishop to e7, knight gf3, knight f6, e5, knight fd7, and yeah. All right, one more. So yeah, bishop to d3. I think this, this is sort of an intuitive way to play the French, yeah, yeah, one more. That's the deal. Three more players, and we'll do it. Or sorry, one more player and we'll do it. 3 total. So yeah, bishop to e7, knight gf3, knight f6. There's a bunch of different lines here. I'm kind of curious. E5, knight fd7, bishop to d3. I think bishop to d3 becomes a more valuable line, particularly in the Tarrasch. In the Tarrasch, you have c3 as a resource, and then you can get the bishop back to c2 if needed. I think that's kind of what supports the bishop on d3 in the Tarrasch. All right, one more person. We need one more. I'm starting when we get 3. When it's 5 minutes with 0 or 5-0 and 3 people, then I'll start all 3 at the same time and go for it. But for now, we still need one more. Is that are you serious? That's a bummer, Lauren. All right, one more. We've got a 3rd slot here, right? B6, queen e2, bishop b7, castles. Yeah, I mean, I'm liking these positions out of the Tarrasch, to be honest. Let's study a GM game. Actually, I'm sort of looking. I wonder if we can screen by GM games. But I was thinking here. Oh, wait. Okay. So we have these 3. All right, need one more. But if we just pick like a GM, so all right, we're up to 3. All right, we got it. Okay. There's 3. If anyone else wants to join in with one, feel free. But I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna start off with 3. Yeah, I'll take any other challenges that come in. Yeah, no. You can still challenge me. If you challenge me, Lauren, I'll take 4. But for now, I'm gonna just take these 3 and start off. Okay. All right. Good luck, everyone. All right, these are interesting. So we have the Italian game against Raymond, and we have the Scandinavian against Eccentric Horse, and we have the Scandinavian against Aphelion. And we have Kiro. All right, Kiro's coming in. All right. I don't think so. All right, Scandinavian. You'd have to run that one by Jen. Somehow I don't think that's the right. I don't think that's the right look, Kira. Yeah, well, that's right. So this is and then this is the Grunfeld against Kira. So 2 Scandinavians, 1 Italian game, and 1 Grunfeld. Sounds about right. I'm going to play bishop to g5 on that one. I might have to talk less, because... Alright, so 1 Italian game, 1 Grunfeld, 1 Scandinavian. Or 2 Scandinavians. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's not the Grunfeld. It's, you're right about that. It's something, Okay, bishop takes e2. Is that what that's called? Alright, this looks good. I think this should be good for white, though, to be completely honest. I was just closing out with the simul. I don't have very much time today, so so we will we'll do another simul some other day. But this is just a quick simul just to end up the lesson. Yeah, sorry, Anch. There's a bunch of games going on though. They're interesting. So there's 1 D5, there's one Italian game, and then there's 2 Scandinavian games, I think. Game against Aphelion is interesting. Sorry, Lauren. Yeah, no, we can, we'll do another one of these soon. I mean, honestly, depending on how quickly, I just figured we had some extra time today, so we could do it. But yeah, this, yeah, chess.com's format, I've heard Lee Chess has pretty good simuls, to be honest. I haven't checked that out yet, but I think they have pretty good configuration for that. Interesting. Yeah, I gotta figure that out, Anch, to be completely honest. I gotta figure out exactly how to deal with that, or how to best set up a simul. I want to try a really big one, to be honest. Because I think that would be cool. And it seems technically possible. Like, I'm always in favor of things that are sort of just, like, technically possible. If it's, you know, if you can have a really big simul, then someone should have a really big simul and do that. I think it would be really cool. I'm a little bit worried about my position here. Raymond's game actually has gotten to be pretty interesting. How am I doing on time? Honestly, with this time control, okay, that one I'm not so sure about, to be honest. That is, there's some complicated things going on with the pawn structure in that one that is difficult to do super quick. That rook and pawn endgame is tricky. I'll have to think about how I want to do that. Yeah, see, this one is a confusing game. This 5 but 3 against 2, I don't know about this one. The eccentric horses game is tricky. I'm also sort of disappointed. I thought my game against Raymond was going super well. but I think I might have been wrong about that. Okay. Oh, did I hang a piece? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. I thought I hung a piece there for a second. I was like, what? But I forgot it was check. Yeah, see, I didn't play this rook and pawn endgame correctly. Oh. Let's see. All right, good game, Aphelion. Good game. So down to 3. Let's see. Rook to c5, maybe? Not sure. All right, good game, Raymond. Good game, Raymond. Down to 2. Eccentric Horse is the one with the crazy endgame. I'm really worried about Eccentric Horse's game, to be honest. But maybe I'll be okay. Not sure. This is fun, though. I like this. I mean, honestly, like, chess.com does have some kind of ability to do a simul, which is good. Down to 2. Yeah, I think eccentric. No, I think eccentric horse should be winning or drawn. But he has to finish. You know, I'm gonna try to flag him here, which is kind of lame. But you know, honestly, oh, hey, good tactic by Kira. I've definitely missed a tactic here. Whoa, okay. Oh no. Okay, all right, good game, eccentric horse. I got lucky for sure. I got lucky with the time. All right. Okay. All right, good games, everyone. That was fun. I liked that. Very close games, especially the time pressure ones. That is actually really intense. Good game, Electric Horse. Very, very close and interesting. Good stuff. Yeah, fair enough, Electric Horse. But to be fair, it was pretty intense. I was just sort of at the end. You were one on the board, Electric Horse, for sure. But yeah, that was very close. I would figure that, I don't know. I guess I would sort of figure that a simul would be. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure whether it's easier or harder for me if I have increment, but those were great games by everybody. That was a lot of fun actually. So yeah. Thank you all very much for participating in that. I'm still trying out this simul format, but that is actually really fun. And I think this one went a little bit better than the last time. So yeah, thanks very much for the game. If anyone wants to see a game that someone, I really want to give credit to Electric Horse. Electric Horse was better. Electric Horse was one on the board. I made a few errors. He got it basically that extra. It was rook and 5 pawns against rook and 5 pawns. I don't have a chance. 15 seconds is too fast for me, but yeah, Electric Horse's position was very good. I'm not sure, he may have won that pawn by force anyways, but I feel like it went from 5 pawns to 4 pawns in a way that wasn't super good for me. But it was great games by everybody. Electric Horse, similar to how he beat me in the simul the other day, he had a very good position against me today. Yeah, a lot of very interesting games. It's fun. You can just sort of create a whole bunch of games at once, which is awesome. I was thinking about doing a bigger simul kind of going into the future, but overall, yeah, 4 games today, and thank you all very much for playing that. That was a lot of fun. Maybe we can take a look at those games if they're ones that are interesting to you. We can look at them. But yeah, cool. Thanks very much for yeah. We should try that again. I'm still just sort of figuring out how that function works, but it is fun. So, cool. Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks all for being here. Thanks all for supporting the stream. And yeah, that's simul functions. Those are fun. So yeah, we can definitely try that and see what we can do with that in the future. But yeah, thanks all for having for being here. Next stream is at 9:35 p.m. Eastern. So 9:35 p.m. Eastern on May 27th. Thank you all very much for being here, and have a good day, everyone. I'll see you later. Bye.